I totally get it. Eating gluten-free can sometimes feel like an endless compromise on flavor. But not with my gluten-free star-spangled berry or cherry cobbler. Honestly, I think it tastes even better than the original, with the rich, earthy flavors of almond and oat flour. And is also naturally sweetened with maple syrup. And with my quick hacks for adding these festive stars without artificial food coloring, this dessert will feel special and festive. Even your guests without a gluten allergy will devour this cobbler. And the best part is, this cobbler only has 16 grams of sugar per serving. A traditional cobbler has 32 grams. So it is definitely the healthier option. We're going to begin by making a really simple dough for our stars. Now, of course, these are optional, but they're really easy and add a really fun element to the cobbler. So in a small bowl, we're going to add half a cup of almond flour, 1 tablespoon of tapioca flour, 2 teaspoons of oil, I'm using coconut oil, 1 tablespoon of maple syrup, half a teaspoon of vanilla extract, and a dash of salt. Now, to help these stars stand out from the rest of the cobbler, we're going to color them red. Now, you can use a traditional red food coloring, but I'd prefer to not have any artificial ingredients in this cobbler. So I'm going to use 100% pure beetroot powder. It has this really beautiful kind of raspberry red color, and all you need is a half of a teaspoon. And then we're just going to take our spatula and mix this together. And then to test if it's dry enough, we're just going to take it and roll it into our hands and see if we can form a ball. And if it doesn't stick to our hands, then we know it's just right. And if it's too dry to stick together, just add a touch more of oil. And if it's too wet and sticky, then just dip it in your flour and then roll in a little bit more flour. And then we'll go ahead and set this aside. And now we're going to make a very simple sauce that we're going to pour over our berries or cherries. And we're going to start with 2 tablespoons of maple syrup as our natural sweetener, 2 teaspoons of lemon juice, just to help wake up the flavors, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, 2 teaspoons of vanilla, dash of salt, and then 2 tablespoons of tapioca flour. And then using a fork, we'll just quickly mix those together. Now we can go ahead and set this aside. And now we're going to make our cobbler topping that will go over our fruit. We're going to start with our wet ingredients, which includes 1 egg, 3 tablespoons of maple syrup, 2 tablespoons of coconut oil, 2 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar, just to add a little more flavor. Now with our whisk, we'll just mix those together till our egg is incorporated. Now we'll add our dry ingredients, which is 2/3 cup of almond flour, 2/3 cup of oat flour, and 1/3 cup of tapioca flour. Then we'll add 1 teaspoon of baking powder and half a teaspoon of salt. Now let's go ahead and mix those together with our spatula. To check the consistency, we want it to be a little bit more liquidy than our cookie dough. So I'm going to go ahead and add 2 tablespoons of some almond milk just to make that a little bit more moist. There we go. That looks perfect. It's kind of like a very thick pancake mix. And now we can start assembling our cobbler. And we're going to begin by spraying our baking dish with some nonstick spray. You'll want to spray it fairly generously all the way up on the edges. And then you can choose if you want to use cherries or berries. I'm going to use a mixed variety of cherries, and we basically want enough that are going to cover the bottom of our dish. So that's going to be roughly about 3½ cups. And you can also use fresh or frozen, which makes it super convenient to make year-round. Go ahead and dump in our cherries, and we can just kind of eyeball that we could probably add just a few more to cover the bottom of our pan. There we go. That looks fantastic. And now we can add our sauce and our cobbler topping. So we're going to simply just give our sauce another quick stir, and then we're just going to go and evenly pour it all across our cherries. And it seems very thin right now, but as those cherries cook and soften, they're going to thicken up with the tapioca flour that is inside this sauce. And man, this smells so good. And now we can add our cobbler batter to the top. Now you can decide if you'd like to have it as one continuous layer, or if you'd like to have it a little bit more splotchy so that some of the cherry shows through. I prefer to have it a little more splotchy, so I'm just going to take my spatula and a fork, and I'm just going to start plopping this onto my cobbler. I don't know, plop, is that a culinary word? And I'm going to leave a few gaps here and there to be able to see the beautiful color of the cherries showing through. Now you could just stop here and bake it as is, or we can add that special touch of adding our festive red stars. So a really easy hack for rolling out our stars into a nice thin even layer is to take a piece of parchment paper, and then we're just going to fold it in half, and then we're going to take 2 barbecue skewers or kebab skewers, and they are about an 1/8 inch thick. So we're gonna lay down our skewers, which will become our tracks for rolling our dough. And then we'll just take our nice cookie dough here and kind of spread it out here in the middle. Fold over our paper, and then take our rolling pin. And I only have my very large rolling pin, which might be a little overkill, but it will get the job done. And then with one hand, I can just roll that dough forward and back along those little barbecue skewers. And just like that, we have this nice, thin, even layer of our cookie dough. Now, of course, you could use any cookie cutter shape that you like, but I'm gonna go ahead and go with stars. And I love this set, and I included a link to these stainless steel cookie cutters in the link below. And I'm gonna pick the 3 smallest sizes. And to create a focal point on my cobbler, I'm gonna start with 1 large star. So I'm gonna go ahead and press this into my dough, give it a little wiggle, and then just using a butter knife, I can go in and lift up the star. And so I'm gonna place it kind of up here on the top left side. Now I'm gonna take the next smallest star, go ahead and cut one out, wiggle, and it lifted right up with the cookie cutter. So it's popping into my hand, and I'll put this guy down here just to kind of balance our large star. And now I'll take our smallest size and I'll continue to cut more stars to spread around the cobbler. And you have total creative license on how many stars you use and where you'd like them to be. This feels more like an art project than baking. And then once you've cut out all the squares, you can go ahead and just roll your dough back together into a ball. Place it between the 2 barbecue skewers. Then you can go back in to create some more stars. Well, that looks so festive and is ready to go into a 350-degree oven. Now, if you used fresh fruit, you can cook it for about 30 minutes. If you used frozen fruit, then you'll want to cook it for about 35 minutes. And you'll know it's done when the batter on top starts to turn a nice golden brown color. Well, I have a cobbler here that I made earlier that I am so excited to try. And you can see that it just has that nicely browned copper crust, and those red stars really add a fun artistic element. Go ahead and dig in, cut a piece. Ooh, you can see that nice and thick cherry layer. Let's make sure we get a bite with whipped cream and some cherry and some of that delicious cobbler. That is so good. You would never guess that that is gluten-free. It just has so much flavor from the oat and the almond flour that you wouldn't get from normal white flour. And then I get the sweet tanginess of the cherries that's been balanced by the sweetness of the maple syrup. And I get such a vibrant flavor that you wouldn't normally get to enjoy if you had so much white sugar. So now you've seen how easy it is to make an American classic gluten-free without compromising on flavor. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with me today in my kitchen to make this cobbler. And if you'd like to see the recipe card for this video, please visit my website, which is gentletummy.com. And I also invite you to like and subscribe to my channel. And if you know someone else who would love to have a gluten-free American classic, please share this recipe with them. And I cannot wait to have you again with me in my kitchen next time.